This is a story of how a university student wanted to become a monk but was sold into slavery to a bunch of cute girls instead. Akimitsu was just a little boy when his man of culture dad taught him that no one can live alone, and it's better to have more waifus. After that, his dad left to get some milk, and by that he meant that he was going off to start his own harem storyline. As his dad was leaving, he told his dad that he was a legend. We cut to the present. Akimitsu wakes up at his table after a night of studying. He realizes he was going to be late and rushed to class. After school, the girls were having track practice. We see Akimitsu's cultured friends doing some intense research on one of the girls' huge cake. Akimitsu was passing by, but we see him resisting his worldly desires by using his book as a shield. His friends laugh at him for being a virgin. They ask him if he wants to go to a mixer, to which he rejects. He then shouts out loud that he doesn't need any women in his life, which makes his already low riz go to -1,000 and makes the women around him leave. He goes to work at the appropriately named Lonely Mart. His boss asks him if he didn't have any dates planned for the night. He proudly says that he was going to be single for life. His boss had his doubts and asked him if he was sure, as his father at his age was a master rizzler. He gives him a menacing look and says that he's not like his father. While he was walking back home, he saw the same limo his dad left to get the milk in. He thought back to the time his 5-year-old self said that his dad was cool, and told himself that there was no way his perverted scumbag dad was cool. It turns out, his family was looked down by everyone for being a family of perverts after his dad became a master rizzler. He vowed to be a virgin his whole life to gain back his honor. While he was walking down the road, he was hit by a huge bale of rice. The girl who was carrying the rice rushed down to apologize and even offered to call the ambulance. But to our virgin Akimitsu, it was already too much having a female within 5 feet of her. He decided to run away and think about the girl in bed while he was sleeping, like a true virgin. It's morning, and we surprisingly see Akimitsu admiring the view today. His friends are surprised that he finally got the balls to look at a woman and invited him to go to a mixer again, expecting him to reject. To their surprise, he said that he'll skip his lectures and work to go. Akimitsu partied like crazy at the mixer. It turns out that this sudden change in behavior was caused by his love for the girl he met that day, which was growing day by day. After meeting the girl, he became so horny that he was fired from his job and failed for skipping classes. He decided enough would be enough. The next day at school, he submitted his resignation letter from university and said that he was leaving the world to become a monk in order to cut himself off from all worldly desires. His uncle, a former priest, gave him the address to an all-male temple in the mountains. He traveled far away to the temple and rang the doorbell when he arrived. When the door opened, he was surprised to see the same girl again. He closed the door calmly. The girl forced the door open, which made him fall. When the girl saw that he was wearing a priest's clothes, she went to change into a much more plot-filled yukata. She fell and accidentally revealed some plot to Akimitsu and said that her name was Aoba Yuzuki. Akimitsu couldn't hold it anymore and turned around to leave to prevent his third leg from getting stiff. He tripped on a rock and for some reason flew to a tree. Yuzuki ran towards Akimitsu while her yukata was loose, showing him how physics worked. Akimitsu couldn't hold back anymore and grabbed Yuzuki's shoulders and almost committed a felony. He took control of himself at the last moment and instead said that he loved Yuzuki and asked her to marry him instead. Yuzuki hesitated on whether to call the police at this moment, but instead decided to bring Akimitsu to a tea ceremony. Akimitsu was confused on why she let her drink tea for joining a temple. Yuzuki apologized and said that the head priest wasn't here now and thought that he would be coming tomorrow instead. Yuzuki asked him what his interests were. Akimitsu thought that the question was part of an admission test. He thought that the priests invited a woman to an all-male temple to gauge his reaction. He thought that because he couldn't control his horniness and proposed to Yuzuki seconds after arriving at the temple, he was going to fail for sure. The girl noticed his worried expression and asked him if he was okay. Akimitsu couldn't even handle a girl asking him if he was okay and was still thinking of how cute she was. He punished himself for failing No Nut November again by punching himself in the face. He apologized for being horny again and asked to go to the toilet. While going to the toilet, he heard a mew coming from a well.
Meow meow, nigga!
He saw a cat stuck in the well and climbed down the well to help save the cat. Instead, he fell down the well himself and the cat jumped back up. Back at the temple, Yuzuki called her friend Kiki and asked her why the man she was supposed to meet for her arranged marriage arrived a day early. Kiki was confused and said that the man Yuzuki was supposed to meet is sitting next to her right now. Yuzuki was shocked and was thinking about who the man that just arrived was when another member of the temple, Tsukuyo, came back and asked Yuzuki if her arranged marriage meeting was supposed to be today. Yuzuki held Tsukuyo and told her that a spirit had appeared. Tsukuyo laughed at her and told her that spirits don't exist when Akamitsu appeared from behind them with his face covered in blood. Tsukuyo was so scared that she collapsed on the floor. Akamitsu, by the will of God, fell on Tsukuyo with his hands grabbing her boobs. He also decided to hump her for some reason. Yuzuki gave her a legendary dropkick and ran away with Tsukuyo. Akamitsu felt the power of his lust rise within him and ran to chase the girls, to explain to them that they got the wrong idea, even though he just assaulted Tsukuyo. Kurage, Yuzuki's younger sister, was in the hallway too when Akamitsu was running towards them. She fainted and was saved by Akamitsu. Kagura and Miya were practicing some calligraphy when Miya heard the noise outside and came to check. Akamitsu headbutted into her and coincidentally ended up pushing her clothes up to reveal another girl's bra. Again. Meanwhile, Yuzuki and Tsukuyo had already run to the other end of the temple. Tsukuyo felt guilty that they left Kurage behind, but Yuzuki told her that the ghost seemed to ignore Kurage for some reason. They figured out that the ghost was cultured and was only going after the girls with big boobs. Yuzuki figured that Akamitsu couldn't be a real ghost, since her dropkick connected. Akamitsu found them and walked towards them to explain. Yuzuki gave him another punch in the face, after which our true virgin Akamitsu still found her cute. It was already night when our head priest Kiki was explaining the situation. It turns out Akamitsu thought that this was the temple his uncle referred him to, and Yuzuki thought the priest he was supposed to marry came a day earlier. It turns out that the all-male temple had been converted to one where males aren't allowed. Yuzuki apologized for her dropkick and palm heel strike, but Akamitsu was more worried about the two ominous blonde girls that looked like they were about to execute him. Kiki came up with the arrangement that Akamitsu would train as a monk at the temple for a while, which made the girls confused since it was supposed to be an all-female temple. The kind head priest, God bless her, came up with the solution to just remove the all-male sign. It turns out Kiki was a forward thinker and was thinking of keeping Akamitsu around for free labor. One of the blonde girls took her sword out after hearing that she was supposed to live with Akamitsu, since they think he's a cultured big boobs lover. The kind-hearted head priest tested if it was true by using her own weapons. Akamitsu failed miserably. Akamitsu thanked them for the offer, but instead wanted to leave out of fear of committing more crimes if he continued to stay here. Yuzuki's younger sister tells her that it's too bad since Akamitsu didn't seem like a bad person.
Flashback.
Akamitsu missed the last bus and realized he may have needed to sleep on the bus bench overnight. But luckily, Yuzuki came to find him, since she knew the buses out in the country stop running early. She asked him if he wanted to stay overnight since their temple has a lot of space, and even offered to convince the other girls to let him stay. Akamitsu, being the virgin he is, still humbly rejected her offer and says that he would figure out a way himself. Yuzuki talks about how she was still surprised that someone could propose to her on first sight. Akamitsu asks her to forget about it, but Yuzuki says that it's weird that they only met twice, and he already asked her to marry him. Yuzuki asked Akamitsu what kind of a joke that is, to which Akamitsu blushed and looked away. Yuzuki was now worried for her safety and asked him if it was really a joke. Akamitsu, again being the virgin he is, dodges the question by replying with his name instead. He told her his name was Akagami Akamitsu. Yuzuki introduces herself too, but was struck with a familiar feeling. She felt like she heard of the name Akagami somewhere before. She brought him back to the temple after realizing this was the son of the man who owed 20 million yen to the temple. It turns out Akamitsu's dad borrowed money from the temple to start his harem storyline before disappearing. Yuzuki knew that he couldn't come up with that amount of money immediately, and that they couldn't just let him off the hook. They decided to come up with a more humane way for him to repay them, slave trade or organ trade. In the end, they decided that he'll repay them with his body. Basically, the year 1619.